And thank you for coming. And all the things, there are causes and conditions. Everything is interdependent. The fact that you're here, again, did not happen by accident. There are a number of causes and conditions that had to happen for you to be here at this time in this particular situation. So obviously there were some previous conditions that led to the action to get you up in the morning, into the car, and driving here. So that's good. Paramita, sometimes they say crossing over, but it's perfection. We call these the 6 perfections. Sometimes you'll see it as 10 perfections. Have you seen that, 10 perfections? There's 6 paramitas, 6 perfections. Sometimes it's 10 perfections or 10 paramitas. But the additional 4 that you see are just a continuation of the 6th, the Prajna paramita, or wisdom, and that's divided into subsections. But basically there are 6 paramitas. The additional 4, and maybe 10, are having to do with concentration, the Prajna, the ultimate, our Buddha nature. These are aspects of the Prajna paramita. The 6th of, usually we discuss it as 6 paramitas or 6 perfections, and these are this is the path to Buddhahood that all of the bodhisattvas practice. Perfect generosity, perfect ethics or shila or morality. That is, it's essential to cultivate morality, the perfection of patience, the perfection of joyous effort or enthusiastic perseverance, the perfection of concentration and dhyana, that's meditation. Sometimes it's called concentration, contemplation. And meditation takes a lot of different forms. It's not peculiar to Buddhism. In Western, we see the meditations of Marcus Aurelius or Plato or Socrates. Meditation goes back a long way, even before the Buddha. The Buddha, when he was on his journey to enlightenment, studied with many meditation masters and quickly attained their level. So no matter what system you practice, you can only get as much as your own level of realization will allow. I mean, if you're practicing, so-called advanced meditation, you can only absorb as much of that as you have capacity for. So these meditations, just like we could give the sutras to a kindergartner and or someone who is just learning to read, and they might be able to read the words. They'll sound it out and be able to read the words, but they won't be able to understand its meaning. Someone in high school may have the sutra, Prajna Paramita, for example, may be able to read the words and make more sense out of it as a high schooler would, but not in the ultimate sense of realization. They can only bring to it their own level of realization. So when we're talking about meditation, it's the same kind of situation. There are many kinds of meditation, but you can only realize that which is that you have the capacity to learn, and that is somewhat based on karmic causes and conditions as well, and merit and your karma, basically. So there are karma causes and conditions, and some people naturally are active in the world, and we say cultivating virtue. It comes easy to them. It's a natural expression of their essential nature. Other people, very difficult to cultivate virtue, a little bit easier to be self-aggrandizement or, not so much thinking about others, but, what's in it for me kind of idea. So that altruism is less apparent. And these are karmic causes and conditions. These are things that we've cultivated and have the seeds within our mind stream. So sometimes we say, oh, that's a good person. It comes kind of naturally based on karma, based on merit. And as we continue down the path of Buddhism, we continually move away from the negative and we cultivate the positive. So again, the teaching of the Buddha summarizes basically cultivate virtue, avoid doing harm, and tame your mind. The taming of the mind is very important, creating mindfulness, being able to make choices. Sometimes our activities are just reflex. They're just a knee-jerk response to a particular situation because we've trained ourselves in that kind of way, that if this happens, this is our response, whether it's anger or compassion. It could be just what we're feeding, internally. So this is what the 6 paramitas are about. Generosity is usually the first, and generosity again takes a lot of different forms. We have certain resources that we can use, financial ones. Now everyone starts to get a little squirmy when I start saying generosity, because they might say, "Oh, he's asking for money," and we all start freaking out because our immediate kind of thing is we want to keep everything we have, and we don't have any extra to give to anybody for any reason. But this generosity is all encompassing, and the generosity of a bodhisattva is that the care and feeding of sentient beings is more important than his own well-being. That's kind of a revolutionary thing, but the bodhisattva has taken that attitude of benefiting beings, even at his own expense, because we have all been each other's mother. In our prayers, we say, we pray for our suffering mothers, all sentient beings considered as our mother. And yes, all of you have been my mother, brother, sister, friend, enemy, lunch. We've taken a lot of different things. So, a lion on the Serengeti and a gazelle. Maybe I've been the gazelle and you've been the lion. And we've taken lots of different forms. And take this precious human birth, this particular form, again, did not happen by accident. There were certain causes and conditions necessary for us to be born human. There are other realms that we could find ourselves in and have, but we don't have the memory of it. But when you become a Buddha, you will see your life's in totality, along with everyone else's as a Buddha. But some people do. Some people have the capacity to remember. A bodhisattva, even at the first level, has a certain understanding, but only as a Buddha can you know the totality of these causes and conditions, all there in your mind stream. So this generosity, we were saying, has to do with the generosity of giving, whether it's money to a beggar or food to a beggar, or food to an animal, taking care of beings. The second is removing fear or giving protection for someone who is in a situation that may be harmful, to protect beings, like the Bodhisattva Tara, who removes fear. And this is a bodhisattva activity. And as we cultivate perfect generosity, that manifests as protection. And ultimately, the third of these generosities is the generosity of giving Dharma. So one realizes their Buddha nature and is on the path to Buddhahood. That is the highest generosity and considered the ultimate giving of Dharma. Yeah.
Perhaps you could elaborate on the basis. You made a statement, everybody has been my mother.
Yeah.
Where does that arise from?
It arises from beginningless time. There is no first cause in Buddhism. So our mind stream has been since beginningless time, and that's a tough concept to wrap your head around. But so in that time, everyone has taken a variety of relationships to us. The Buddha said that our mothers since beginningless time have cried for us more than you can fill the oceans. That's a lot of tears. That's a lot of feelings. That's a lot of incarnations. But that is what the Buddha said. So in cultivating compassion for others, we see all beings as our mother who cared for us when we were vulnerable and to feed us, care for us, protect us in that way. So with that kind of expression of, or that understanding, we want to benefit all sentient beings. Not just some sentient beings, not just our friends, our family, but we see the bigger picture and the causes and conditions and the interdependence of this since beginningless time. We've all been interacting. People who we may have some discomfort with, can be from past lives, can be, there may be someone who doesn't like me. I didn't maybe hurt them, but there was some kind of thing that it could be from the past. It could be there's some situation that is ripening. So we use that as a vehicle for practice and to cultivate a variety of these virtues or paramitas or perfections. And the first is the generosity or dana paramita, the enlightened quality of generosity, charity, giving. And this basically comes out of unconditional love, a boundless openness of the heart and mind, a selfless generosity, as we say, with the understanding that all beings have been our mothers. This creates this attitude, that we don't want to take advantage of people. We have a pure motivation, and it comes out of a genuine concern. So obviously this is generosity is the antidote for miserliness, greed, possessiveness. Our ability to give our energy, our time, our money, clothing, gifts to assist others is this realm of generosity. And a very important part of the Buddhist teaching, to free others from misperception, confusion, pain. That is the purpose of Dharma. So giving Dharma is the ultimate, as we say, generosity. So we care about the comfort and protection of others, and that is the essence, and that we embrace all beings, with this radiant love, affection, compassion, loving kindness. It would certainly be in that realm too. Yeah. Yeah. If we have the understanding, that we all have this Buddha nature, and we want to cultivate this to the highest degree, and that life is short. We've talked about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. The first one being that, we have this precious human birth. And so having reverence for that. And, in the Buddhist tradition, again, the 5 things that a lay practitioner practices is not to kill, not to lie, not to steal, not to engage in wrong sexual activity, and not to do intoxicants which cloud the mind or distort the mind. So that first of those is that reverence of life, not to kill. So any question about the first dhyana, this perfection of generosity? These are all aspects really of your Buddha nature, and it is about cultivating these practices, which are a natural expression of who we are. But because of a variety of circumstances, we have clouded it, covered it obscured it, and now we are beginning to cultivate really who we really are. And by becoming aware of these and focusing our awareness on bringing these literally to perfection, and having the attitude of a bodhisattva, that underneath all this is our aspiration to become Buddhas for the benefit of all sentient beings. Without that aspiration, none of this really makes any sense. Why should I do it? You have to have a why. The why is, out of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, that yes, we are suffering, but we see that many sentient beings, our mother sentient beings, suffer, and we have taken the attitude and aspiration to be of benefit to them, and the only real way we can be of benefit to them is by becoming a Buddha ourselves. So we strive to attain the level of realization of a Buddha, and that requires certain practices on the path. And what leads to that is exactly what we're talking about, this 6 paramitas or 6 perfections. All sentient beings, they have Buddha nature. Yeah, well, for you it's mosquitoes. For someone else it might be something else. So that is a tough one for everyone. We are not enlightened beings, and it just reflects the mosquito on us, boom, the end. But, if you were that mosquito, that would be a different situation. You'd say, no, gone. Right. We host 20,000 different species within our own body. Species, not individual little microbes or things. Species of beings. We are like a planet, and we host many different in our biome, in our being. We're quite a universe, and all those beings we support, and so it's a micro universe.
They're not sentient, though?
They'd be considered sentient.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's why, garlic and onion and some other antibiotic kinds of things are kind of off limits for Buddhists, for monks. Buddhists, yes. For monks, it's not only does it kind of stir the winds, but you're also, it is antibiotic. And there are those, just like we were talking about plants, are these sentient or not? But these do communicate, and they do have a quality of intelligence. And
I read a story recently, well, it was maybe almost a year ago or so, about some studies on consciousness of plants and how they communicate with each other. Like one tree gets infested by bugs and says, "Hey, you guys over there, turn up your defenses."
That's right. Get your
I've got all this, I'm out of here, but you guys, you can make it.
So that's kind of controversial. Usually we don't say vegetation is sentient, but there's a case to be made for it. The same thing with these billions of creatures that inhabit our own body. That's another discussion for some other time, but yeah, well, that's true. It can kill you, the wrong bacteria. So you have to do what you have to do. Then you replace them and you do what you can. But no, you have to preserve your life. As a bodhisattva, you've taken certain vows. If you're dead, there's not much you can do. So that goes for a lot of different things. Sometimes people eat meat or because they need that as a medicine. We would say usually that that's the best thing to do, to take another life. But in the same situation, sometimes it's necessary. And for example, in Tibet, in the frozen tundra of Tibet, they would eat yak, but they are very sensitive to killing. But they took the best care they could. They used every aspect of the animal. They did it in a very sacred way and with great appreciation, loving kindness, and compassion as much as possible. But in the similar kind of way, we have to use some common sense. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You're not casual about taking a life, So if you swat that mosquito, Om Mani Padme Hum. Wish it the best possible evolution and send it on to its next great incarnation.
Is there a particular rationale over that, in the sense that such a being, a mosquito, the consciousness of a mosquito, can hardly cultivate merit, so consequently you're helping to deliver it, hopefully to another realm where it can potentially create some merit on the path?
Well, it's hard to know. There is consciousness, and I often use the example of a thing that I saw on YouTube not too long ago about this dog carrying this other dog off the road that had been hit. So it was cultivating virtue, and that consciously or unconsciously. So that particular mosquito who might come in here and hear us chanting Om Mani Padme Hum can have a lasting effect on the... So there's lots of things that's hard for us to know because we're not omniscient what the situation would be for that mosquito or for any other sentient being. So having a long life, to cultivate awareness and to cultivate virtuous activity is considered auspicious, So we want to live a long life. No, I think that's fine. In a pond that I have the little fish that are mosquito eaters, and is that bad putting them in there? No, that's fine to keep them down. Often they'll neuter the mosquitoes in some kind of way. There's a thing that they can do that so they don't repopulate. There's often various ways of doing them that, other than spraying them, killing them, doing other things. So you try to be as mindful as you can in every aspect of your life. Right down to cultivating food and, what we do to our water, what we do to our air. We say this is, everything is interrelated. Every thought we think, every action we take. So look at how you spend your money, on the stocks, if you have stocks, how what are you investing in? Is it towards life or is it towards war and suffering? These are all things that are in our realm of awareness, and we should be considerate of. Yeah? So, and that kind of brings us to the second of the Paramitas is the perfection of ethics or morality. So that's a segue right into this next one, enlightened quality of virtuous and ethical behavior, morality, self-discipline, impeccability in our personal behavior, integrity. So basically we want to be harmless in our activity, not to threaten or hurt or kill other sentient beings, being harmless in our thought, word, and deed. So it's impossible, to progress along the path to enlightenment if our moral behavior or ethical code is, this is really the foundation of progressing on the path, is upright morality and ethics. So we were saying we abstain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, gossip, greed, malice. Those, wrong views. These are all the things that come into this particular category of perfection of ethics. This is, it's not to be considered a restriction. A monk has lots of different vows. We talked about the 5 householder vows or lay vows, those 5 that I just mentioned. But it's not a restriction to our freedom at all. It creates it creates a greater freedom. And people often say, wow, how can you do this? But it creates a happiness and a security in our lives because our virtuous behavior aren't creating suffering for ourselves or others. And we were mentioning this idea of the natural progression. As we do this, we create the incidences or the likelihood of creating more positivity in our life. If we lie, steal, sexual misconduct, those kinds of things, the more we do that, the more likely we are to do that in the future. the more you do a thing, the more likely you are to do it. It's habit, and we were talking about habitual patterns. So if we're cultivating positive habitual patterns, we begin moving away from the negative habitual patterns that really have created suffering for ourselves and others, and will follow you like your shadow into the next life and create more discomfort and problems. So we have this enthusiastic perseverance of ethics and morality because we know it makes a difference currently, and it will make a difference in our future. And everything that we experience now is based on the situation that we've cultivated for ourselves from the past. So your life situation, your health, your looks, your everything is based on a karmic cause or condition.
I think maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on how the understanding of cause and effect, which even the stupidest of us recognize, but don't incorporate into the fabric of our lives. Because the term karma may not be understood by all of us very effectively. And karma has, as I see it, has two dimensions, intention and action, the two dimensions of karma, and how all of this endows us with responsibility for our actions because we are truly the captains of our own ship. And to me, that's the heart of the whole process, is taking responsibility through understanding how cause and effect has put us where we are and will put us where we're going by virtue of how we operate in our lives. Could you perhaps elaborate on that?
Yeah, two of the important considerations in Buddhism, as you kind of intimate, are karma and reincarnation. That understand the thought that you're thinking right now leads to the action that will be coming up. And if you want to know what your future life will be, look at the thought that you're thinking right now. And these thoughts, as you say, our intention, our action, lead to this particular outcome karmically. So what makes an action or good or bad karma is first we have the thought, then we engage in the action, and then we rejoice in it. So if it is a good action and we are bringing benefit to others, and we rejoice in that, and we're cultivating that habitual pattern in a positive way, then that brings us good fortune now and in the future. And again, this karmic reaction will follow you like your shadow, as it says in the sutras. If we have a negative thought to hurt, to be divisive, in our physical action or our speech, that particular thought will lead to an action, and if we rejoice in that negative action of hurting someone or stealing or lying, then that kind of seals that karmic event and creates the causes of a future condition. Does that make sense? So the Buddha taught this very clearly and said we have to guard our mind because it starts in the mind. It starts with our thoughts. So purifying our thoughts, cultivating the mind of enlightenment, we call it bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, it kind of protects us from negative thoughts and consequently actions. As you may know, mantra, the word mantra means mind protection. So if we're beginning a negative kind of an action, or we're thinking a thought that is not of the quality that we might like, just doing mantra such as Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the mantra of Chenrezig, the bodhisattva of loving kindness and compassion, begins to resonate in us in a particular kind of way. When we talk about meditation, which is the fifth of the six perfections, we will talk about different practices. And this practice of Chenrezig people often ask me what practice should I do, and I may just say, do 3 malas of, do the Chenrezig practice and do Om Mani Padme Hum. That is a supreme practice, in the Vajrayana. So we have the Hinayana, which are the kind of rules and regs that come out of an understanding of all the things we're talking about. The Mahayana, which is beginning to cultivate this attitude of the Bodhisattva, it's sometimes called Bodhisattva Yana. And the Vajrayana is the use of mantra and visualization to create an auspicious condition. So these mantras and visualization, such as Chenrezig, is a supreme, skillful means to cultivate virtue and to remove the negative kind of predisposition towards negative emotions. And Om Mani Padme Hum is, you can reach enlightenment simply by practicing what some people say, give me something bigger, heavier, more substantial than Chenrezig, Om Mani Padme Hum. Everyone does that. Great. If everyone would do that, that would really be wonderful. Really do it with faith and devotion and loving kindness, and let that expand, to the farthest reaches of space. So our meditation, again, when we get to that point, we'll talk more about meditation. I don't know if we're going to be able to actually do that today or not, but we will move along as quickly as we can. Any question about anything else so far? Any other things that this has brought up? So morality. I think we've lost a lot of our morality, in ethics and being upright in our activity. If we look around and see what we're doing to the earth, to the water, to the air, to each other, to turn the mind towards Dharma, to understand that this precious life is fleeting and impermanent, and we want to make the most of it, we really have to change our behavior and our outlook and have the right view about our purpose here and how we can be of benefit to sentient beings.
Could you elaborate a little bit about the precious human life? Again, some of us may not be familiar with that principle.
There are 6 realms in the Buddhist cosmology. We don't like to talk about hell realms, but again, this isn't a supreme being who is placing you in a negative state, such as the hell realms. This is your own mind stream that, based on causes and conditions, leads you to a place of suffering. If killing and negativity has reached a state of a crescendo to this point, and you find yourself in the hell realms, it is tremendous suffering. Again, this is nothing that is you are put there by someone. You put yourself there because of actions from the past or currently. And those situations will lead to a different rebirth in one of the 6 realms. So hell realms, the so-called hungry ghost realms, which are because of greed. The first, no one likes to talk about hell realms, and so it's due to anger. It's that anger in a second can remove all of our meritorious activity, because we know what happens in a moment of anger. You can hurt somebody, kill somebody, do negative things out of this emotion of anger. So the next one we're going to do, this is again a nice segue, is patience. And patience is the antidote to anger. Anger is the thing that takes us to the lowest of realms. And the next one is this hungry ghost realm, which is due to our lack of generosity. It has to do with greed. It has to do with this miserliness, and it is a state that we cannot be fulfilled, and a state of, these are considered lower realms because there is suffering. The next realm that we consider in these lower realms is the animal realm. And your dog or cat, you may not think is in a lower realm, but in fact, it cannot attain a state of realization like you can. It can't self-reflect and attain Buddhahood in the same way that those in the upper realms can. So taking care of your animals, and certainly taking care of animals in general, allows them, not to have to kill, to be fed, and that does help them. So those are considered the lower realms, and when we talk about precious human birth, being born human is considered very auspicious. It is not, doesn't happen by accident. There has to, again, you've heard me say over and over again, causes and conditions. There have been auspicious and causes and conditions leading to your being born human. So you have done some very good things. You have done meritorious actions that have brought you to this particular realm and in this particular time where we have the Buddha's teaching available. It won't always be the case. Again, we've mentioned that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago, and we are still in the time of, this is the Buddha of our time, Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the fourth Buddha of this fortunate eon, as it is said. So there have been many Buddhas. There are many Buddhas. There will be many Buddhas. You will be a Buddha. That is your birthright, and you will attain that, hopefully sooner than later. But Shakyamuni, who lived 2,500 years ago, you probably know the story. He was a prince, and he abandoned his kingdom and became a renunciate and attained the state that we call enlightenment. When he was asked about this, he said, "I am awake." He is awakened from the delusion of ignorance, and awakened to who we really are, this essential, and he called it Buddha nature. So you also have this Buddha nature, and you will awaken to it, hopefully again, sooner than later. But having this precious human birth, we're not in the hell realm, we're not, and we'll talk about the God realms briefly, in a blissful state. All of our needs are taken care of, so we don't turn our mind to the Dharma in the same kind of way. We don't have the same conditions. We are just enjoying everything. And again, there are causes and conditions. You may have been very generous, but the situation in the human condition, we call this this is desire realm, and we have many desires that can lead us away from our Buddha nature, striving, clinging, our attachments to this, that, and the next thing. We can say that the degree of our attachment really is the degree of our suffering. So renunciation is an important part of the path. Now, you don't have to be a monk in a cave in the Himalayas to be a renunciate. You just don't attach yourself and cling to certain things, knowing that they're impermanent, knowing that they're going to change, and anything born is going to die. Anything that has come into existence that we can see, hear, feel, touch, taste, are all illusory, impermanent, and will pass away, including this particular body that we have. Will have its time, and anything born dies. That's just the nature of impermanence. So this, we have to understand and have the right view about this precious human birth. It's precious if we use it in a precious way. We can benefit ourselves and others by cultivating skillful actions and means that the Buddha taught. If we follow that path, and you know that for another talk we have to talk about the Four Noble Truths, and the fourth of that is the path that leads to enlightenment, and there's a way that the Buddha taught to attain that state. But we have the capacity, we have the mind, we have all of the necessary resources, physical resources, mental resources, and we live in a situation where we actually have the leisure time to practice. You may not think you have the leisure time to practice. You're so busy doing this, that, and the next thing, and sometimes that busyness is really a huge distraction, and we just are covering up another kind of situation that we don't want to be present in this moment. And our meditation are those things that lead us to being clear awareness. The nature of our mind is clear awareness, without projecting into the future or commiserating about the past. It is being one-pointedly in this moment, without distraction. So we're cultivating stability of mind to attain that state, and that's what meditation is. So we have the capacity to do that. Without the capacity to do that, we really can't have the direct experience of the nature of our mind. So that's what is special about this. But even having that capacity doesn't mean we're going to realize it. We have to practice it. We have to study and realize what the Buddha taught. And the Buddhist teaching won't always be here. That's the other thing. I mean, there's about 5,000 years or so in the Buddha's cosmology. The teachings come, the teachings go, then there's kind of a dark time, sometimes called Kali Yuga, and there's a decline in a certain awareness, consciousness, study, practice. And then the next Buddha, Maitreya, will come and reinstate the teachings of the Buddha. Then there's the cycle that goes through, and the next Buddha will come, who happens to be Lion's Roar, and that is the Karmapa. All of these 1,000 Buddhas have been designated, their time, their teaching, all those things are in the sutras that the Buddha taught. So this is what makes this precious life, precious human birth, precious if we use it. If we don't use it, it's like having a precious jewel and just throwing it away. We have the means, we have all of the necessary requirements to become Buddhas right now. So, does that answer the question?
Well, pretty much. I think for me what's very important is the sense of urgency that can arise in us by reflecting on how special it is to be a human being. And when I was taught these principles, we were asked to consider how few humans there are in relation to all the other forms of life, even on this tiny planet. I mean, there are only 7 billion of us here, and there are more insects probably under this building, perhaps, than there are humans on the whole Earth. And so consequently, if we think, and I was taught, if we think about that, we realize how rare and special it is to be a human being.
Correct.
Because we have the conscious ability to create favorable consequences for ourselves that lead us to the resolution of suffering.
Yeah, being born human is a very small percentage of the life forms that we see. Birds, fish, insects, as you say. There may be more underneath this building than there are on the entire planet. So this is true. So that's what makes this also a precious human birth. Of all the possibilities, and we have been those little critters that are like under the building. So we don't want to squander it or waste it. So that does, we'll probably be able to do 3 of the 6, and we'll maybe continue this next time, is patience, the paramita of patience. And as I mentioned, this is the enlightened quality of tolerance, sometimes it's called tolerance, or forbearance, or acceptance of our situation as it is, not wanting to change it, make it something different. Patience with the situation, also the antidote, as I say, to anger and frustration. It does enable us to face difficulties, and without losing our composure or our inner tranquility, by maintaining this sense of patience, inner tranquility. We can forbear adversity. It's the nature of reality. This is samsara. Samsara means, going round and round. And we've been going round and round from birth, death, rebirth, since, as we were saying, beginningless time. And this patience and tolerance free us from resentments and irritation and all the little things that, the car breaks down, or we have a storm and the electricity goes out, or there's a myriad things that can frustrate us or reality imposes on us. But this enlightened quality of patience is such a gem, in terms of our ability, to be loving and compassionate in the face of others' criticism, of misunderstandings, others' aggressions, We can be unmoved. We don't have to resort to anger or depression or unhappiness in adverse situations. It is the quality of patience really that gives us the capacity to keep an open heart, open mind, under difficult situations and is integral to our Dharma practice. So sometimes, again, this is called forbearance. You'll see it as such. And to, make an effort to see the goodness in others and the beauty in others. Everyone has something to teach us, even if it is, they may be saying negative things, so we check it out. Is this true? Okay. Is this someone's point of view? We don't have to be irritated or resentful about it. I know, easier said than done. Our little egos immediately recoil. How could they say that about me? Don't they know how good I am? So we always make an effort to see the goodness in others and help them cross the sea of suffering as well.
Yeah. You touched on something that resonates pretty strongly. In order to experience and operate from the vantage point of patience, one needs to have the ability to work with negative emotions. And most of us in this society, and probably most societies, don't have those tools. We haven't been taught them effectively, culturally or societally. And many of us come to contexts like this one in order to develop those tools. Because if we can cultivate the ability to deal with negative emotions, the quality of our lives is heightened enormously by virtue of just that. So perhaps you could talk about the tools, some of the tools that Buddha utilized to share with us to work with those very daunting emotions that arise in most of us.
Well, it takes time. And so the next good segue, once again, into the next one, you can see this follows kind of a pattern, is the perfection of joyous effort, enthusiastic perseverance on the path. And it does not happen overnight. And the Buddha did talk about many different skillful means to do this. Then it does require energy, vigor, perseverance, to realize, that a lot of the things that create suffering for us is this attachment to the self, our clinging. So how do we undo all those things since beginningless time that have led to here, recognize the aspect of emptiness, which is really not understood until we get to Prajna Paramita, the seventh wisdom. But we begin cultivating all of the necessary causes and conditions to realize wisdom. It's only in wisdom that we're going to be able to really untie the knots around our heart that create the situation of protection and clinging and those kinds of things. So exactly what we're doing right now is the method to end the suffering and to end the negative patterns, these habitual patterns. We have to be able to see them, and we have to be able to disengage from them by practicing virtue. So in terms of our discipline, there are two different aspects. One is to get rid of our negative patterns, the things, the shouldn'ts, the things that create suffering for ourselves, and to cultivate the virtuous actions that create consequences that will be beneficial to ourselves and others. And that is the effort that is required when we talk about the perfection of joyous effort or enthusiastic, joyful perseverance in Buddha Dharma. So, any other final questions? We are going to have to stop shortly, but we got through 3 of 6, not so bad. Yeah. Any final comments? Okay, short break, and then we're back at 11 for our book study. Thank you.